there it is. Scoop. There it is. That
What's up?
commercial, it just hit me that it's Scoop. Sprinkles. Sprinkles.
What's up?
What's up, buddy? Here we are at a really exciting time. How are you feeling so far about these NBA playoffs?
Last night was exciting for the Knicks. I caught a glimpse of what you were saying about the Knicks. Derrick Rose is that dude. It's great to see his resurgence and
Yep.
truly the fact that he's able to do it with Tibbs, the fact that he's able to do it with Taj Gibson,
Yeah.
and the fact that he's able to return back to New York City.
Yeah.
And do it makes it so much sweeter.
It's a great story. I mean, it adds so much to all of it. It's just a great story. And if you really think about the history of Derrick Rose, you know, when you look at players that get drafted in fantasy basketball leagues, fantasy football, whatever sports, there's always these players that get left behind.
Right.
And you think to yourself, wow, I remember drafting that player 7-8 years ago in the first 2 rounds, and now they're sitting here on the waiver wire. That was very much 2 players that are showing us who they really are, Derrick Rose and also Tim Hardaway Jr. Again, another 28, 30 points. 2 players that were not drafted this season on fantasy basketball leagues, but yet are really showing us who they are.
Well, Lisa, you can speak for yourself because I drafted Tim Hardaway Jr. this year. No.
This is like my first year not drafting him ever.
I feel like he's in a system that really benefits him.
You're right.
Particularly because he has a familiarity with Kristaps Porzingis during the Knicks days under Carlisle. But I'll add this: when you look at Tim Hardaway Jr., it seemed like a switch came on in the regular season when they played a game against the Miami Heat. Miami is home for him. His dad, legendary Tim Hardaway, played for the Miami Heat. But you know, when I look at Tim Hardaway Jr., he's having a great series.
The last quarter of the season for Tim Hardaway continued on in these playoffs.
Definitely. You hear no argument out of me.
Now, before we get into the lines of Bovada, don't forget you can all use my promo code. Everybody, it's Lisa250BV. Let's talk about a couple of things. I know that you don't watch golf. Am I correct?
No, I don't. But I got a pedicure the other day and I was watching it. They had it
Sunday?
On Saturday.
Okay, so you didn't see, but you saw all the news footage of when Mickelson was going to the 18 and how poorly planned it was, that the crowds just emerged. Literally, Scoop, I had an internal panic attack for Phil. And I because it was just so much pressure. First of all, we've just come from living in a socially distant world, okay? Now all of a sudden he's gonna walk through there and not get rattled before the last hole. Golf is such a mental game, it's such a silent sport, and they're so composed when they're out there, and there's really limited interaction. There's nothing extreme. That was mind-blowing to me, and that kind of made me discuss on my Monday night show the fact that I'm really feeling the vibe of human nature right now, and it's almost like everyone just got out of prison. And so it brings me to the 2 situations last night. One was the popcorn being thrown on Russell Westbrook, and the second, which to me is just in COVID times, Trae Young gets spit on by a fan. To me, that should be criminal. That should not just be, you can't come back to this arena. That should be so much more than that. And what we're seeing is so confusing because here we're so excited. We want to see fans in the stands. It makes watching the games at home more exciting. But yet we all wanted to go back to games, but now this is how we act? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think that those 2 actions, specifically the spitting incident, was quite primitive. Particularly because, you're right. People have been home. People have been locked in, and it's almost like, I don't know about you, but I know when I would go over to a relative's house growing up, your mother would give you the talk. Go in there and act like you got some sense.
Yeah.
It seems that nobody gave that fan the talk. And I think that I grew up from a perspective of it's worse to spit in someone's face or spit on someone, period, than to punch them in their face.
And I also grew up in a treat others like you want to be treated role as well. And so what we're seeing is great in a sense because the NBA has the opportunity to reel it in. You saw that they put out some statements today, how they've dealt with both people involved in these incidents, as well as moving forward, upping security, which can only be great because it could potentially mean that more people will get to go back to their jobs and more people will be working again because they'll be working at these arenas, watching out for these players. But man, It's something to see. And I will tell you, you could feel the energy on the island when that game let out last night. I mean, it was alive in New York City after the Knicks game.
Yeah, the Knicks definitely took care of business. And that adjustment in the second half has really what fueled them. Derrick Rose hit that key shot going into or in the third quarter. Julius Randle has struggled exponentially the first two games, which is interesting because during the regular season, the three games that they played, he was a terror since the public.
I know. It's such a bummer. I don't know if it's the pressure. And now you get to the point where, do you need to see a sports psychologist this early into these playoffs? Are you letting this get into your head? Right. If you start to have your third or your fourth bad game, you have to be very concerned about how this is really what's going on here. And it's something that we're all hoping for so much more. But we get more tonight, Scoop. We get 3 more tonight, not 2 games. 3 games.
Right.
I know which one we're all looking forward to watching the most, but there's 3 really good games. So let's start right here with the Lions at Bovada with the first matchup. That's the Bucks, who we think are just taking care of the Miami Heat. Right now, the total points is 224.5. Mm-hmm. Minus 125 for the Bucks, plus 105 for the Heat.
The Bucks have been playing well, Lisa.
Well.
I think that this is going to continue. And the only way that I see the Miami Heat kind of getting out of this hole, I pinned it in my piece today at ValleySports.com, was Dwayne Dedmon has to continue to play well like he did in the second game. And Jimmy Butler has to average about 40.
Yeah, he does. That's pressure. That's pressure.
A lot that goes into it versus the Bucks going in and doing what they need to do. So I have the Bucks, and I'm probably going to agree with Jeff Scrimdaddy. The Bucks with the under. He and I usually agree.
We usually agree. He also knows his stuff, but I was going to say the thing is 224.5 looks a bit high for me. We got to remember these teams are now getting a little bit more worn down, and what we're seeing is the travel, right? So you got to play one arena for two games. Now you make a move. Everything's a new adjustment. We know how differently the Heat play at home, but I just see, man, the Bucks have just started every game with so much momentum. And continued it through where you almost have to wait till a commercial to go and get a drink from the fridge or something. You're like, oh, this is so good, and I've loved it.
I agree, and I really think the Bucks have improved every game. The first game, I think they were horrible from downtown, but I know Chris Middleton hit that jumper with less than a second remaining in the overtime period. You look at the second game, the Bucks as a team shot better. I think they set the record for most threes, or tied the NBA playoffs record for the most threes in a quarter at 10. But overall, they're shooting, in the whole game set a league record for the playoffs as well. But it's not just Giannis, it's not just Chris Middleton, it's also Forbes, it's also Drew Holiday. He averaged a double-double in that a double-double in that second game. I think he's been the difference maker, and also the addition of Bobby Portis, as well as PJ Tucker. Those have been the gold mines for the Milwaukee Bucks so far in this series.
It's funny, it took us till now to realize all these pieces are adding up for the Bucks, and that's just what we're seeing in this situation, right? All of the pieces that we looked at and said Giannis doesn't have enough around him, now he does. And now with the right contributions, it is though a slippery slope because there is a demand and there is needs to be filled, but the Heat aren't getting it done. We'll move to the next game, which is the game of the night, I think, for everybody, which is the Phoenix Suns taking on Los Angeles Lakers. Fun fact, the Lakers have not played a home game in the playoffs since 2013. Remember, they went to the playoffs last year, but they were in the bubble. Since 2013. And do you remember what series that was? Because the Lakers got swept.
Yeah. Well, Johnny Gill had a song called My, My, My. And when you look at 2013 and you look at the fact that the Lakers have been able to proficiently go through the Lonzo Ball era, go through the Brandon Ingram era, or transition into the LeBron James era, seamlessly play in the bubble, didn't have an NBA Finals at home. What I like about this team is that they kept going. Game 1, Anthony Davis had about 13 points. You look at what he did, he averaged almost a triple-double in Game 2. And when I look at the Lakers and what they're able to do, Chris Paul has to step up for the Suns if they hope.
The problem is Chris Paul at 100%? How limited is he going to be? That's the bummer. Chris Paul makes it this far, and you're right. It relies on him so much. You don't want to go back to the points for AD, Anthony Davis, in that second game. You know what I love that Anthony Davis did after the first game, Scoop? I love that he owned his shortcomings, because I often believe that when you write something down or you verbally put it out there, it's louder and it means something.
Manifestation.
Yeah. And he put that out there, and it's a great way for him to forgive himself and move on and look at game 2. Don't keep looking back at game 1. You've got to look forward to game 2. He told us after game 1, I'm going to play better game 2. And he did.
Yeah, I think it's ownership. And it's interesting because when you look at LeBron James in the play-in tournament against the Golden State Warriors, you know, he went in, the Lakers were like the most favorited underdog, non-underdog in sports history, at least this season. Shortest window to return, and they produced, you know, in that play-in tournament. And I feel like that energy kind of skidded away. But I feel like the Lakers are still finding their identity in year 2, or at least in defending their championship crown this year. So it seems like LeBron is the leader. You saw him yelling at Kentavious Caldwell-Pope the other day. And I think that it'll continue. Andre Drummond quietly had a double-double in the last game.
Quietly.
And
the Lakers have to get to the next round to really get to gel 100%, because it's still happening. Like you said, they're really still getting the rhythm. It's still happening. So I think give me the next round. Now, I don't think this is going to be a short series. I think this is going to be a fight. And I'm looking at this game tonight at Bovada, the Suns-Lakers. You think it's going 6? I think it's going at least 6, maybe 7. The total points is lower than the first game we talked about. It's lower than the Bucks Heat, which at Bovada is 224.5. This Suns-Lakers game is only 212. Okay, so we're planning on some defense tonight for sure. Plus 225 for the Suns, minus 275 for the Lakers. Lakers at home, first home playoff game since 2013. They were swept by the Spurs, by the way, in that series. What are you going? Where are you going right here? And right now, we know that the series is tied. I find it hard to believe the Lakers won't win their first home game back at Staples Center. So for me, I'm taking the Lakers for the win, but I am going for the over, because I do think this is going to be a fight. It's been a bummer, some of these games, when they get into like the 20-point spread, you're like, do I really have to still sit and watch this? Like, come on, make it within 4 points so I still have an attention span here before I'm flicking back and forth. So I don't think that will be the case in this series the entire run. Do you agree?
Lisa, we agree. We're here. Lakers, over.
And you say 6. I think you're right about right. All right, next up on the docket, we've got the Nuggets Trailblazers. It's kind of a bummer to have 2 games. I'd have to flick back and forth. I really love the 2-game-a-night playoff format where one at the end is just trailing into the beginning of the first one. I don't know. It's ideal. It's like NFL Sundays where you just like, you're sitting down from 1 to 4. You get to get up and walk around a little bit before the later games. But that's not the case tonight. We have a lot of focus we have to put in tonight. Nuggets, Trailblazers. Total points is high. It's the highest score of the night. 227 even, plus 150 for the Nuggets to take the win, minus 170 for the Trailblazers. This is another interesting series. Who's taking this game? Right now, we know that the series is also tied. In these series we've talked about so far, the Bucks lead 2-0 in their series. The Suns-Lakers are tied up at 1 win apiece. And the Nuggets-Trailblazers are also tied up at 1 win apiece, which I think this is another series that could go 6 games.
This is the conundrum I have. I like Jokic.
Yeah.
I like Lillard. But the Blazers didn't show up outside of Powell, McCollum, and Damian last game.
Yeah.
Not mistaken, in the Nuggets, on the Nuggets side of the basketball, there was like 5 or 6 guys that scored in double figures. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with the Blazers tonight because I think they're going to feed off their energy. But I think this series is going to still go 6 games. I still have the Blazers winning, but it ain't going to be easy.
Jeff says it's going to be Blazers in the under. You're going for the Blazers winner. You going for the over? You going with Jeff for the under? The total points is 227.
How low can you go? How low can you go? Going under.
So you mentioned them not really contributing, and I completely agree with you. You also mentioned the energy at home. Now, for these teams that are going to their home arena for the first time in this series, each weekend, you notice it. There's more fans at each game, right? It's opening up. It's opening up. I heard today that there's a chance that every team in the NFL could have full capacity at stadiums by the time the season starts. How different do you think it is for the players who battled through? Let's just use the Lakers for an example, who battled through in the bubble and now have slowly been introduced to fans. I mean, when you hear player interviews right now, it's amazing to hear the excitement and just feel the energy and the intensity.
I think Atlanta gave folks a taste of what home arenas with fans looks like. You kind of, at the top of the show, you made mention of the fans kind of ragging on Trae Young. And,
oh my gosh, they were chanting "F-U, Trae Young."
But this is what I think.
I think it's a bit much, everybody. I just think it's a bit much.
I think the long-term effects of COVID, and this is a whole different conversation, made people's tolerance, patience, and respectability shifts up.
It's so funny because I came out of this more patient than ever, and I, in the beginning, was like, this is going to be great because when we get out, we're going to be so thankful to be out. I'm such a Pollyanna sometimes, right? And I realized you're right. That is not the case. People are over the top right now. Anything goes. It is a free-for-all out there.
Yeah, and so to that point, I think that Atlanta gave you kind of the appetizer, the main courses at your respective home arena. I look to it kind of being comparative to the first day of school. You don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
It's great to see fans, but it's so much of the unsure of.
Well, let me ask you this then. When we look ahead, when we look to tomorrow night, there's going to be an interesting presence in the arena when the Nets travel to Boston to visit the Celtics, and Kyrie had some words to say about the environment that he was in there before. I think that's going to play against him when it comes to the potential of fans maybe being happy to see him again.
I think the blind man can see that.
Yeah, he stirred the pot a little bit.
He did, but I do think that is a conversation. I know that.
Listen, I've heard things at games that have made me not want to go, that have made me rather just watch it in person, because I want to be at home. I want to be the hall monitor that says, like, what makes you think it's okay to say like that to somebody? You know, there's no reason. This is our entertainment right here. You wouldn't go and yell at a Broadway star that's on stage putting on a show for you. This is no different.
You'd be escorted out.
Yeah, this is no different to me, and I get it. It's louder, it's more. It's definitely changed, and I think the thing I have with the "F-U, Trae Young" chant is just the fact that it really limits the age that families can start taking their kids to games. I was lucky to get to go to basketball games younger and go, be at the park, and people didn't swear around kids, or they weren't aggressive back then. Very different story now.
Or women.
Or women. Or women. You're forget about that. But let's talk about the games moving forward. Let's hit that one right here. We know these lines will change. If you are planning on making your play, make sure you check back on any injuries or updates. But if you're looking to get in this before the lines do change, the Nets Celtics game, 227.5. I definitely think this could be an over.
For the Nets?
Yeah. For the Nets Celtics tomorrow night, 227.5. They've been putting up 115 each.
Yeah, particularly because you look at the last game, they kicked their $$ sign, and I think that could continue.
They sure did. All right, the earlier game, the Knicks-Hawks, a little bit lower of a scoring game. 211 is the total right now. The Knicks are so unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. Unpredictable.
Aren't they?
I have I got Nets Celtics in the front. I have the Atlanta Hawks in this game.
First game at home in this series. I completely buy it. I also think the Knicks are going to feel what the fans just did to the Hawks in New York, but they're going to feel it at maximum capacity when they go to Atlanta. So it's going to be real, okay? It's going to be real. One more game tomorrow night, and I think this one's pretty interesting. Clippers Mavs. Look at the work that the Clippers put in to make sure they played the Mavs in the first round of the series, and the Mavs are beating them in this series 2-0. Was it the right decision for them to throw those last games, or should they have fought for it in the play-in tournament to just be challenged greater outside of themselves?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I think it's.
I'm gonna say this. I mean, when you look at how the Mavs are playing, it's really something. I didn't know that Luka was as aggressive as he was until this series. Like, I've secretly seen it, but when you can hear him smack talking his opponent and just going at, I'm like, oh, I love this, because this means you are in playoff mindset right now. All you want to do right now is win, because I think the Mavericks looked at it like, who do the Clippers think they are, taking the loss in the play-in tournament because they think we're an easier matchup? Guess what? We're going to show them.
And it's a rematch of last year in the playoffs. Porzingis got hurt in the series last year.
Yeah.
And I think the pressure is on the Clippers to replicate, or to reciprocate, based upon the team that they put together. I mean, we sat on here and talked about Rajon Rondo and his efficiency and the ability to come in and guide that team to a championship. And so far, we're looking like the village idiot, because collaboratively, they're not on the same page. But, you know, when you look at a roster that the Clippers have, they naturally look better than the Mavs.
On paper? Oh, yeah.
And I think that when you look at the Mavs, I've seen them teeter-totter.
I don't know, I can't read your, well, it's throwback. Hold on, I can do this right. Talk Sports is making me laugh. He says, the Clippers getting beat by a 22-year-old teenager. I can't deny that. I mean, he is going after his level of confidence this season. You know, I drafted Luka in my fantasy basketball league. It was fun to have him for the season. But his level of confidence that has grown being in a regular setting as opposed to the bubble, it's just remarkable.
Yeah, I think you're right. But the other thing is, I've written this throughout the course of the week. Luka is looking like magic in LA. Just the way he's able to fill up a stat sheet, not comparing him to Magic.
Yeah.
And as far as statistically, the way he's gliding on the floor, and I think that the additions of, at least for his presence on the bench with Willie Cauley-Stein, as well as just, another year with staying in the game, with, losing in the playoffs last year, I would be motivated. And I think their plight is similar to the Milwaukee Bucks, where they lost to the Heat last year.
And it's funny, Jeff says something good too. He says the Clippers may have the most pressure out there of any team. I agree. Is it the fear that Kawhi is going to leave because his goal was to stay and bring a championship here? Not that the two-time series championship MVP, it doesn't really matter to him. Does it matter to him? Does he feel, is he going to give it a go long? There is a lot of pressure for the Clippers. No doubt. There's a lot of talent on the Clippers as well. But Luka is a younger version of Dirk. That's a great comparison too. And if what you're saying is true, Talk Sports 23, we get to enjoy Luka for a pretty long time, because think about the amount of years that Dirk was in the NBA.
I see more combo between Ben Simmons and LeBron than I do.
Ooh. That's
Dirk.
a nice hybrid. I'll take that hybrid. I'd like that hybrid on my fantasy basketball team again next year.
But he's entitled to his opinion. What I'll say is, when I look at Giannis to me reminds me in some ways like Dirk.
Okay. Yeah, that clean style of playing. I can see it.
Dirk had to grow into his height, and we had to figure out whether he was like a 3 or a 4. Giannis, and to me, he's listed as a 4. He's a 4 with 3 capabilities. And when I look at the dribble penetration, the shooting, and just growing and continuing to grow, I see more of a Dirk Luka excuse me, a Dirk Giannis comparison. But I respect Talk Sports' opinion on it. I can see his point.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we look at with a younger player and say, who are you really turning out to remind us of or play like? And there's some unique characters like Lillard, who, I don't really know who to compare Lillard to. What he can do in the last 4 seconds and 2 seconds of a game is just, that's someone that can just stand up the pressure. But then over on the other side of it, without the help, always have to be under that pressure, it makes it hard to win.
Lillard reminds me of a cross between what Derrick Rose would have been had he not gotten hurt, mixed with Isaiah Thomas, the Hall of Famer.
That's a good one there, too. That's a good one there. Yeah. So, again, Bucks Heat tonight, Suns Lakers tonight, and Nuggets Trailblazers. You can use my promo code at Bovada, Leaston250BV. Scoop, which game are you most looking forward to seeing? Lakers Suns?
I hope for the Lakers to win the day before my birthday tomorrow. Go Lakers.
Your birthday is tomorrow. Everybody there, make sure you follow Scoop. Make sure you wish him a happy birthday tomorrow. So we're both May birthdays. You are May 29th, but you're a Gemini.
I am. You're a Taurus.
Yes. Okay, so May 29th. Well, happy birthday. I will do my best. I'll write a note. I will reach out to you again tomorrow. But for right now, happy birthday to you and many, many more. This is exciting. Like, everybody's be wishing you a happy birthday now. Everybody, have fun watching these games. Scoop and I will be back. Make sure you're following everything he is about. And tell your friends to follow Bovada right here on Instagram. And have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Bye, Lise.
Bye.